just had.
How did the
How-
decisions,
Impact sustainability.
How did,
how did the decisions made by ancient civilization?
No, how did geography impact human settlement?
Oh, thank you.
Done.
Okay.
I was thinking, how did humans impact their environment?
Too much.
No,
words.
too much.
That was like the shortest one I'm gonna get. How did humans impact their environment? That's shorter than the one you just came up with.
The impact decision. Yeah.
What about civilizations?
That's a debatable.
That's a big tamale.
Yeah.
But they're not going to recognize that, I don't think that's a word that they will have used.
So then that gets back to.
What is the definition of civilization?
Yep.
What is a
What is
civilization?
a
What
civilization?
is civilization?
Done.
Isn't there something called like the elements of civilization in that curriculum?
There it is.
There you go.
What are the elements of civilization?
No, not even.
Oh.
Because the elements will come out later on, right?
Okay.
Aaron's got it.
What,
How
can
did
you add?
civilizations develop? How is it related to?
And you now come to debatable, where children have, where the students you want to choose a position to argue, basically.
So things like what is the most important? What is unique?
I like question begin with did. It's a yes or no, and they have to explain themselves.
Go back to the ones we don't, let's not rethink it, go back to what we have already. So let's look at the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, and then come up with the debatable question for each one. So what are the patterns and trends, what's the debatable for that?
Did all civilizations follow the same patterns?
Whoop.
Nice.
So, no, write it please. Is there a clear cut, definitive answer, only one-sided for that? And if everyone's gonna say yes, to me it's not debatable then. So is there the other side that, no, some did not? Cause then it becomes not debatable,
I don't know enough to tell you
And
yes or no.
that's gonna come out through your instruction.
okay?
That's gonna come out through your instruction. So you wanna be able to, in your instruction, give them two different avenues
Right,
so that they could potentially.
All right, then that's
and
not,
I'm worried that that's not debatable.
that's not,
question.
it's not,
But-
it's not, come on.
What is the most important pattern or trend?
That's a much,
That's a much more debatable.
that's a
That's-
much
Well, that's gonna be
more.
the W. That's gonna be the W.
That's a good
I like that
question.
one better.
What is the most important
That you wanna lead them to.
It could be trade,
or
it could be
trend
weather,
that civilizations
Right.
follow?
What's
but the development of
the
civilization.
development of civilization? Communities.
Then the second one, what's sustainability? So, what makes,
What was the most important feature? for
what makes a
sustainability?
community sustainable? Don't make it harder.
Okay.
Is that conceptual or debatable?
Well, some people could argue you need water to sustain, whereas other people could argue maybe you needed.
An army,
Army, or you needed,
Okay.
you know,
Is there a better way to frame that
Technology.
question than?
See, I'm okay with that, because you just came up with two different examples.
Right.
And someone might say, no, I don't know what, you're wrong because it takes the army to do this. No, you're wrong because I need water first.
Right.
So as long as they're able to create a position, then that would be a debatable question. So what was the question, Mary?
What makes a civilization sustainable?
correct. Because it's not gonna just be water, guys, it's
And,
gonna.
well, and that's what I was about to add and say, and you know,
And
explain your
why is
reasoning,
it
why,
all the other things besides that once water's there,
add and
there's
why,
all the other
Why
things
and
that you
how.
need to sustain
or why does that
the
matter?
community. You can't just have water and then, well, if you say you have a pond or a lake, well, the lake is gonna get filthy or dirty after a while, so that's not gonna keep it sustainable. It'll start it, but it won't end it. Now, next one is impact, so how are you gonna debate impact?
What is, so what if you looked at landforms or a geography term, what is the most important?
What is the most impactful geographical feature for civilization?
And we could tie in the physical
You
feature.
said what, can you switch what with which?
Yes, which is the most impactful?
Because now you're forcing them to.
Yeah.
Choose a
Is it
side.
water, is it climate, is it,
Which is the most impactful geographical feature for
resources.
for civilizations?
And why?
And then
Which is
explain,
the
and
most-
then
And
there
explain.
should be an explanation,
And explain. Or just put explain.
Explain which.
explain.
most
That's not a
impactful?
question, no. We want questions from these, correct?
You can still put explain,
Okay,
because
okay.
explain is still a.
I thought you actually wanted, because I read that as inquiry
Multi.
questions.
Explain
Which is
which,
most impactful geographic feature
For civilization.
for civilization?
Perfect.
Explain. Because when you say explain, they're gonna say, well, water is. Well, why? Water is because of this, it gives us that, it gives us crops, it gives us irrigation, it gives us the technology then to,
You could pose
For
it as a question
canals
and then
and-
follow with the explain.
You could do that too, which is what Brian was kind of struggling
So
with.
pose it as a question and then,
What was that, I'm sorry?
What you were saying was explain wasn't a question, it's more
Right,
of a,
right.
and it is still, because I'm giving you a command to do something. Explain which, I'm telling you what I want you to do, but if you want to phrase it as a question.
Right, and I,
Which, and then explain.
okay.
So now that you have this whole framework,
wait, we have one more,
okay?
Oh,
Oh,
civilizations.
what is the,
what makes a civilization?
how do they develop? Well, you want to get back to water, right?
You just
What?
tossed
Hold on a sec, you said,
Unique,
Which key elements are, or which
Key
is unique.
to a civilization? Which key elements are unique to a civilization? Because that's a debatable question.
yes,
Correct.
it is.
element.
And then that's bringing all the stuff that we're teaching in.
Ah, bingo.
so I do want to make sure I'm putting emphasis on this. If we create these questions and don't ask them, they're useless. So having this printed out or embedded within our flip charts throughout our lessons, to me, needs to happen.
Yes.
Because we've created some great questions, a lot of debate around these questions, but if we don't use them, it's all for naught. So I'll make sure I
I mean, I don't
This
see
is
a
your
problem.
plan.
Why can't we have that up on the board the whole
Yes.
time and then
Absolutely.
constantly go back and refer to it?
Yes.
So take that, print it out,
So,
tape it up there, and then when we go back, we're constantly going over and saying, okay, guys, what inquiry questions are we doing now? What are our factual?
can we
What are our
put this on
conceptual?
like the BAP, you know, the big poster printer?
Yes, you can.
absolutely, you can print out 3 of them.
Print out
post them
3
up
of
for the
them,
entire
laminate it.
Done.
Laminate them.
And then you know what you do?
I'm in favor of that.
You get a little arrow.
Arrow
They're
or-
getting
on a
excited.
piece of tape, and you stick the arrow next to the ones that you're hitting that day, and then you don't need to write it every day, and no one forgets, and everyone's happy.
Clap, guys. Because I'm about to end the tape. This is good. Thank you, guys. Clap, clap.
We have two more parts of the context. So you're referring to patterns, trends, civilization. That would be one that you're definitely hitting upon as an MYP because you're getting them to think. So if I'm saying patterns, in my context right now, I'm focused in on political systems, I'm focusing on systems of water, I'm focusing on actions, I'm just thinking geography, where water would, temperature, and all of that would relate. But if I would relate it to math, if I were to take that statement and I would focus in on math, I can very easily say, well, patterns, we're talking about algebraic patterns in logical thinking. So the idea behind it is, I'm taking that objective, and I'm relating my MCPS curriculum to that objective. So from your statement, as an example, you hit, I'm gonna come back to patterns
Trends.
and trends. Part B, where it says knowing, demonstrate knowledge and understanding of subject-specific concepts through description, explanations, and examples. Your debatable, factual, and conceptual questions do that for you. You're asking students to be able to give you concrete examples from your curriculum to demonstrate their understanding. You follow so far?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at B. B, C, and D. Which strand or strands, plural, do you feel that you are focusing in on in this unit?
Including the factual, conceptual, and debatable questions that you already have. Which strands?
Thinking critically.
Okay, which one is that? Thinking critically, so which strand or strands from there would you want to incorporate?
Discuss concepts, theories,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one,
Synthesis.
synthesizing information to make valid arguments.
say D1, D2.
Not that one so much.
Because we don't have a huge number of sources, right?
That's 3 or 4.
And interpret different perspectives.
No, there's really no different perspectives. I mean,
Isn't
there is.
always different perspectives in history.
I mean, this one is
Debatable.
pretty,
Pretty typical.
this one's pretty clear cut. Like when you get to, you know, Athens versus Sparta, or, you know, the fall of Rome, and you can talk about different perspectives and, you know, implications of why Rome fell. I mean, those are more debatable than this. To me, this one is,
There's not a lot of debate in
Not a lot
sixth
of
grade
debate,
curriculum, to be honest with you.
I don't know, to me,
But just based off what you have now,
yeah.
based off the debatable questions that you have, which one of those match?
Only one?
D1,
I think the keep it simple, stupid approach,
Yep.
you know?
D1.
D1,
So
okay?
D1, discuss concepts, issues, models, visual representations, and theories.
So
Copy
you have
and paste.
D1. Do you have any other objective from C, B, or A that you want to
Can you
touch
scroll
on?
up to A, Laura, just?
Control
Using-
plus, please, Laura. Thank you.
Awesome.
That's what I'm here for.
Definitely.
Well, the terminology, we want them to use the language.
Mhm.
Are you-
Absolutely.
So
A1,
that's the
the-
knowledge
that
and
was what we talked about
understanding.
the First half hours.
And subject descriptions.
Speak, Laura.
I think that one as well.
Yeah,
I agree, Laura.
both of them.
Mhm.
So A1 and A2.
Because they'll be able to give examples of settlements that
Yeah.
develop near water and the why.
Okay. Is there anything from B, and I've written these down so we can transfer it afterwards.
Not B,
Mm-mm.
not so much B.
No.
Okay,
B is
anything from
research.
C?
C.
C3.
So I have a hard time because this looks to their ATL skills. So like one, they're obviously going to do that
Mhm.
in multiple ways. They're going to communicate information. But that's how they're going to present learning. I
Mhm.
don't know that that's our objective for them.
Okay,
Well, that falls
Yeah,
under
I see,
evidence of
I
learning.
see when kids are doing their presentations at the end of the year on their culture projects and,
When we're
You know,
explicitly
or-
teaching
right.
communication,
Right.
not when they're demonstrating and we're referring to.
okay.
Isn't that evidence of learning? Just a question.
I don't know how to answer.
What- In other words, if
Oh,
you've taken
through
these
an
as your
assessment.
objectives, in your
Mhm.
assessment, will you be assessing how they're communicating?
No, I'd be assessing what they're communicating,
right.
not how they're communicating.
Okay.
Because you're not, they're not gonna be,
I'm not assessing their writing, I'm assessing what they wrote. I'm not assessing how they spoke, I'm assessing what they said.
Okay?
Okay.
So for argument's sake, right now, you put A1, 2, and, A1, 2, and 3, and you use D1.
Yes,
So let's capture those under the objective section.
Copy, paste.
so I'm going to copy this
You
whole
can
thing,
take A, knowing and
the
understanding,
whole thing,
yeah, A1 and 2,
and I'm gonna drop them in here.
just drop them in there.
Bada boom, bada bing.
What is it,
Control V.
Control V.
What is that?
And now you want to put your D1. So now, basically, in everything that you're doing, this is your focus. This is your foci that you're worrying about in your instruction, in how you're delivering. That's all it is. Your assessment of all their knowledge of the sustainability, the impact, the decision-making, is going to be demonstrated through those strands.
Once that's explained, I think that's gonna take, it wasn't until I got it, and literally this morning, that it made sense and why to do this.
Yes.
Cause are we taping?
Yes, be honest.
Just, I was gonna say that it felt like there was a lot more work gonna be put in because of this. And I was like, we've been doing this already, but all this is doing is justifying it and giving you a clear path that you're always going to come back to, which is going to therefore further student understanding.
Standing.
And that's what I know many colleagues I was having an issue with it. I'm not now, but that's because I had an epiphany. I mean, man,
So we're gonna stop here. I know we have to create the assessment, but we'll come back to the assessment piece. What I want you to think about is what task
Or activity.
or activities do you want students to do that will ultimately demonstrate their understanding?
these, come back to these things,
Right.
exactly.
Right. That's your lesson plan.
So we just have to go through the flip charts we have.
Yes.
We already have activities that support all of this.
Yes.
And
Just
all,
align them.
Mhm.
Exactly, and then you'll create the rubric, which we'll come back to another time, to actually measure,
their
to how to relate that
understanding.
into that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And that'll be the data that's collected.
Yes,
And then that's what we'll be able to share out and show
Yes.
what student
Yes.
progress.
yes.
Exactly.
Share evidence of learning.
So,
So instead of just looking at student data, but their actual scores, we're actually able to look at the concepts as well and then see how.
Which ones you need to go back and
the delivery of
reteach.
each lesson in order to know how effective it was.
Yes.
so my question is, if you were to take away something from today's session, what would you take away? Aaron, you already,
I pretty much told you.
okay? Laura, from today's session, is it
For the MYP portion or just overall?
just overall?
So I think the big huge thing is the collaboration, because it works so much better to do this with a group of people where you can say, oh no, let's look at this. Without that part, it is really hard to do this.
Okay,
I wouldn't have as quickly come to the realization of how it was all set up without having people talk about it first.
Amelia?
Well, definitely the collaboration piece. And then, this will be year 4 that I'm teaching the curriculum. And every year, it's like peeling back another layer of the onion to understand how to best present the information, because it's very abstract for kids, world studies and ancient history and, these timelines that go back tens of thousands of years for kids, it was super abstract. So this gives some structure to it for for them, I think, and continues to develop it for them, and at least for me, about how to best communicate it.
It takes all the facts and all the different things that they're learning and all the things over time, and it puts it back into this one little concept that we are trying to teach, and then ties it all together.
Last year, I felt like we did a better job of having them zero in on the W word, you know,
Mhm.
water, 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 water. We just said it 100,000 times. And we still had kids at the end of the unit, my gosh,
Lost.
like, where have you been? You know, and I'm thinking, well, what didn't I do? But, you know, so I guess every year, you know, we can just keep working the problem. And this helps you work the problem.
And all of this discussion that we're having right now as far as a reflection would go in that last part where it says that during and before. All of this would go in that before section
Right.
of your reflection. Then while you're implementing your lessons, what would you want to change? What worked well, what didn't? And then, or questions to consider, what other questions did you want to ask? And then, in the last part, at the end of the unit, how did it go? What data did you have to support the students gain that understanding, didn't understand, and so on. So, my last question, and then I'll promise I'll leave you alone. Based upon what you did, will students be able to inquire from the information that you've just created?
Say that again.
Will students be able to inquire? Will your statement of inquiry, will your questions instigate inquiry in students' minds?
In and of itself, or
I think-
supported with the lessons that are presented?
The breakdown of it does.
Yes, absolutely. Because we took the statement of inquiry, we broke it down into the questions that were our factual questions. Then we continued to then bring out the concepts that would help back up the facts and the debatable that's in there that cements the facts. Because through debate and looking at the different concepts, you come up with the facts. So yeah,